So this here is the earnings page on KeeperHub. I've got a workflow listed here called Ava V3 Health Check, and you can see right now it has one invocation. I will show you that in just a moment on how we ran that. And it's also got 0.01 in USDC, so as our gross revenue. Obviously tiny numbers, but the interesting part here is I didn't write any of that code. I didn't manage any infrastructure, and the callers didn't need to know anything about Ava's contract API. So in this video, I'm actually going to take you through a workflow, how to actually get it set up, then how to list it in the marketplace so it's discoverable, so that agents can actually call it, and more importantly, actually how these agents can then pay you for it. And this is just going to take a few minutes in a very simple use case to hopefully get you guys started with listing your DeFi strategies to the marketplace. Here's the concept. On the left, we have the AI agent. The AI agent needs to check the health score of an Ava position, and it needs to do so before it actually executes the DeFi strategy. So on the right, you've got the Ava v3 contract on Ethereum. And then of course, in the middle, you have the KeeperHub workflow. And the agent doesn't actually know the Ava contract address. It doesn't know how to decode what you see here, the get user account data. And actually, it doesn't have to know it. It just wants to actually, well, pass in a wallet address and make sure that you get the health factor back on that specific wallet address. And that's what this marketplace workflow is for. You build the logic once, you list it with a slug and a price tag. Agents can then, as the AI agent here, discover it via X402 or MPP registry and call it. They pay in USDC and you make money on every call. Pretty simple. Let's actually go through the setup process. I've already got this workflow built that I want to use for this demonstration. But let me walk through it so you kind of understand what we're actually listing to the marketplace. This is a very simple workflow and can be a lot more customizable, just to kind of give you a grasp of where you can go with it. The entry point here is a manual trigger, and this is what receives the input from the calling agent at runtime. So in this example, there's one field the agent has to check, and that is the wallet address, because we're checking the Ava health score of your specific wallet that the agent's providing. It's also possible to have, a lot more fields for other workflows. And in this one, we could also actually have it check the chain if you want to do it for Arbitrum, if you want to do it through Ethereum or Base. But just to keep it simple in this demo, I've just chosen to stick with Ethereum for this one. Now the wallet address is a string and it has a description so that callers actually know what to supply, and that description will revert back to a bit later, but in short it's going to be like something like EVM wallet address to check. Then the second node here after the trigger node is a native node, or a native Ava node, and this feeds directly into the, as you can see in the top right corner here, get user account data on the Ava v3 pool. This is one input again, and that is the wallet address that you see here. This is pulled directly from the trigger field, which we'll get back to. So this is actually not going to be hard-coded. I've just added a hard-coded example here just to kind of run it so you can see the workflow run. Then we'll go back and change it to something that's not hard-coded and rather can be triggered. This node here, I will actually go ahead and return you 6 raw values. Which include total collateral, total debt, available borrows, liquidation threshold, LTV, and health factor. The last node then here is a code node, and this goes ahead and actually kind of normalizes all the values. So for instance, the raw health factor is dialed into the back, like dialed back into like a readable decimal. Same applies with collateral and debt, and then it also adds a risk level. So anything above 2.0 is safe. There's a warning between 1.2 and 2, and then liquidation risk at, well, below 1.2. So we're quite happy with that. Now let me go ahead and run it to show and make sure everything is still working. The wallet address I used has a lot of depth, just to kind of show you what that looks like. It's not my private one, full disclosure. Now I went to the runs here, and you can actually then see the runs and also look at the output. So the normalized output node, the code node, has given us that there is a liquidation risk because the health factor scored in a 1.1, which is not good. And you can see the total debt here. Okay, so we know that this workflow is now working. So obviously the next thing we want to do with it is we want to list it to the marketplace so that agents can start calling it. And that is rather simple. There's a button here called List on Agent Marketplace. You click that, and the first thing you want to do is we want to click the workflow slug here. And we want to, well, we could make changes to it. I'm actually quite happy with the name. This is clear, it's specific, it kind of matches what it does. So, you know, this is what the agents will use to discover your specific workflow and actually what shows up on MPP scan and X402. You cannot change this workflow slug once you've published it. So that's very important to kind of get it right the first time. Then there's a price per call. I'm going to keep it very low, just 0.01. This is, you know, reasonable for contract read. This saves the caller from actually writing the integration themselves. And also list this workflow and make it callable by AI agents. If you don't press this, then it actually won't be discoverable, but then you can at least, you know, play around with the slug. But once this is toggled on and you list it, then the slug cannot be changed. Before you list it, you can make changes to the slug. Then we have the input schema here. And if we add property, you can see we can go ahead and choose a type of property. We know that the wallet address is a string. And I'm going to put in address here. I'll get back to why in just a moment, so that will make sense. And then earlier on, I said, like, you know, we could actually give the agent some guiding principles. So here I could put in like EVM wallet address to check. Okay. And output mapping. So for output mapping, we want the response node to the agent to be the normalized output code node. And that is because that will basically give them the health score and give them an indication of what their wallet looks like. So I'm going to keep this blank here because then it will actually choose all the fields from that node to be output back to the calling agent. Okay, so I think that's it really. I'm going to go ahead and say list workflow. And in doing so, you can see the color of this marketplace went from gray to green, meaning that it's now listed. If I click back in on it, you can see that you cannot now actually make changes to this. You can actually save different changes for the workflow slug specifically. However, what I do want to make a change to is the address here, because this is hard-coded right now. We don't want it to be hard-coded. So you want to use an @ sign, and you can see here if I type in manual data, that is one now called manual triggered data, and then the address, because that's what I had put in here with EVM wallet address to check. Great. Now that means that this isn't hard-coded. It will trigger whatever the calling agent provides as a EVM wallet, meaning that this can run for anyone. Okay, the workflow is now actually registered on X402 and MPP, and this is registered under KeeperHub's entry. So any agent with wallet can actually find it and call it now. Now, to call the workflow from an agent, we need to make sure that your agent has an agentic wallet. So now we're on the flip side. We're no longer the author of these, DeFi strategies and workflows that we've listed in the marketplace. Now we're actually the user who wants to call your DeFi strategy. And there's lots of different options depending on what you're building. What you'll see here on our documentations page under AI tools /agentic wallet, that you can download a KeeperHub agentic wallet. And this the custody is server-side in a turnkey sub-organization. So there's no private key that lands on your disk. There's a lot of good information describing exactly what happens. And this is what I would highly recommend as the production agentic wallet for usage. Then we also have, and I highly recommend, again, reading through this documentation. But we do have things like agent cache, and agent cache is great for like just quick testing. But as mentioned here as well, we do not, recommend using real funds. And the reason why is that the wallet key is stored as an unencrypted plain text file. So there's no passphrase or no keychain integration. And then, of course, there are the likes of Coinbase Agentic Wallet and a few others. Again, read through this documentation and only use agent cache for testing purposes, which I will do now as well, just to kind of give you guys a feeling of what the process looks like. Highly recommend the KeeperHub Agentic Wallet or Coinbase Agentic Wallet. And the next thing we want to do now is we want to actually jump into a terminal or Claude Code or Claude Cowork, depending on sort of what communication channel you use. And we'll actually try have the agent call on our strategy or our workflow. So what we've done here now is we've transferred 3.05 USDC to my agent cache wallet. And this has landed in base. I transferred it to the wallet address that you see here. Now, I have decided to use Claude, but you could very well use any agent framework. You could use OpenClaw, you could use your terminal via CLI, wherever you prefer to actually have your agents run. Now, what I want to do is I actually want it to call up against the workflow that we created. So I will ask it as such, can you call a workflow that checks my RBB3 health position, on, and then on this address. So that's just one way of prompting it. There could be thousands of different ways, but what you'll see now is your agent will uncover what callable agents or callable strategies are available on KeeperHub, and it will find the one that is most applicable or matches your prompt the most, and will then go ahead and run through that specific workflow. So here it has found the workflow that we created, and the slug also RBB3 health check, and the call is at 0.01, and it's calling it now. I haven't allowed it previously. Let me just allow it. So as you can see here, the workflow requires a payment via X42, and agent cache will be used to handle it. So the result, as we get back, no active position. I just gave my own wallet address on Aave, so there's nothing on it. But you can see that I have no collateral deposited, no debt, and no borrowing capacity in Aave 3. It's highlighted it, and the payment of 0.01 cents has been paid via X42 on base here is the transaction. And it also then gives you the remaining fund of your agent cash balance. So what we want to do now is we want to actually head back into KeeperHub and act as the author or the person who has now created and listed this to the marketplace and see what happens on their end. All right, we're back in KeeperHub now. And you can actually see if I open up runs, you can see it ran 1 minute ago. And this was the exact call that we just did, with no active positions. So you actually get the logs as well that can be immutable and shared with the caller. Now, what we want to do is, as the author, I want to see, okay, how many invocations have there been? And rightly so, the RBV3 health check has had 1 invocation, and the status is settled. So I have received 0.1 cents USDC, and that gets added to my earnings. And you can also very well click here to open up the specific workflow at any time if you kind of want to see which ones are your best performing. All of this information is listed here, including also who are the top callers, and this is the wallet address of my agent cache. So all of this information will be shown here. We're adding a lot more to it. This is just the very early days, hence also very limited use case that I've shown and demonstrated today. but this is going to expand where we also want to have leaderboards with, you know, the top DeFi strategy creators, so that you can actually also follow various different authors or creators to make sure that you actually also get inspiration on what kind of strategies that you actually want to go ahead and also follow and advocate with your agents, so that you don't have to always reinvent the wheel. But that's it for today. We covered kind of how to actually go ahead and list a workflow to the marketplace and make it discoverable on the ERC registry, but also via X42 and MVP. Briefly touched on creating a wallet and what to be aware of and to read the documentation. How to actually call an agent or call a workflow on KeeperHub using an agent, how that payment happens, and how the author also then goes ahead and consolidates their earnings. I hope this was useful. Again, very high level, but looking forward to going to more sort of deeper use cases. And what we also really want to inspire is you guys having a, you know, testing it out, trying various different DeFi strategies that you also want to open up to potential users. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you guys have a great day.